This is the first of 3 presentations around this same project. So what I'm going to do is to give a general overview of this graduate certificate program that we're running at Deakin, so that you get the shape of the thing, but then it's going to be followed by 2 presentations that look at some of the research findings that come out of that. Actually, before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people and the people of other lands that you're all on, all over the world, in fact, and pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. What's the SMSI? This is the Maths and Science Special Initiative. Is a response of the Victorian Department of Education to now a recognised problem of a large number of our maths and science classes being taught by out-of-field teachers. And so what I've got up there is some of the data that they actually presented to us in framing this issue, and we won the contract to run and design this course, which is at the moment a 1-year course consisting of 4 postgraduate level subjects to teachers who nominate themselves or in collaboration with their schools to do this. It's fully funded by the Department of Education, and that means that it's not only the fees are paid, but also schools get the equivalent of about a day a week to support these teachers to attend intensives. We have 2 or 4 days of intensives in each of the 4 units for each of the science and the maths courses. These are focused on content knowledge and PCK. There's also travel and what have you for teachers to get to the intensive. So it's a very big commitment by the department. And it's really built on a long relationship we've had with them, and particularly they've become very aware of this out-of-field issue, largely through the work of Linda, and she's been working with them on framing and recognising this problem, as well as the formal units of study that I'm going to talk about briefly. There's also what we call a Circles program of study support, which is a targeted support structure, acknowledging that for a lot of these teachers, they're returning to study after many years away, and that they'll need support with a lot of the challenges that entails. We've had, as you can see, we started off in 2021 with 127, or we finished actually with 127 maths graduate certificate students, teachers, and 52 science. That dropped in the second year to 55 and 10. And in next year, we have also the contract again to run for a projected number of 50 and 25. Okay. To talk about the nature of the courses, I'll talk first about, and this is very general, we've got our math staff here for any questions later on, but there are 4 units in, you can see there, number, geometry and measurements, statistics and probability, and algebraic thinking and function. It's spaced over a year. There's a whole lot of supports around Deakin processes, and particularly last year, because of COVID, we had to switch to online totally, and so we developed, I think, really quite sophisticated systems for online teaching and learning through a cloud site that had a lot of features, and there was a lot of talk within both teams and sharing across teams as to how best to engage and maintain the integrity of the units in an online format. The focus for the maths was on, as you see, content, knowledge of mathematics learners, the mathematics proficiencies, of which there are, I think there are 5 in the national curriculum, and inquiry pedagogies. If we go to the science, a similar structure there with 4 units on earth and space science, physics, biological science and chemical science. And they're again, similar focus on knowledge of key content, resources, guided inquiry pedagogies, and the cross-curriculum priorities of sustainability, Indigenous knowledges, and contemporary science, and so on. And you've got a couple of examples there. That one on the top is an interactive Jamboard activity in Seamus's chemistry course that students, to illustrate the sort of Jamboard engagement that characterised the online courses. The sort of assessment that we used within the units are given there. It's to do with critiquing activities, designing tasks and learning sequences, which would involve both content and knowledge, and knowledge of pedagogical content knowledge, assessment processes and reflecting on student learning. There's a lot of theory around student learning, practical activity reports, particularly for the science, and evaluating sequences. And there's an example of the cloud site, or the course hub for the secondary science. The maths looks very, very similar, with a lot of resources there, videos, activities, and structured activities. Around this, we put a design-based research framing, and basically we're interested in a number of questions, which you'll get to hear about in the next two presentations. But one of the big questions for this course is, given the commitment of the department, how can the out-of-field phenomenon be effectively engaged with at system level? And this is an attempt to do that. And what professional learning approaches are appropriate? And we're building on really a lot of thinking about the type of course that is appropriate for out-of-field teachers that Linda and Raphael, for instance, have written about, and a number of principles came out of last year's TOOF summit report. Just to remind you, and I'm going to go through this quickly, the design-based research, it's essentially a cyclical iterative process where you identify a problem, in this case, how to support professional learning of out-of-field teachers, and all of the implications that we've talked about quite a bit over the last day and a half so far. And to design and develop a prototype course, in our case, that makes particular assumptions that you interrogate through longitudinal refinement. And we've had a year and a half of this at the moment. There's initial and ongoing monitoring of all of those things: context, the needs, feedback, and activities. We did a lot of talking within the team and reviewing. We recorded some of our conversations, made notes, and so on, and refined this for presentation at conferences. So I'll just go through this very quickly, but the sort of data we got were both those researcher meetings and staff meetings to discuss what was happening, participant surveys, which we didn't get such a great response on, to be honest, but we'll show you some of those results. Focus group interviews, and also collection of participant artifacts. And the focus is multiple, both on the role of the school in this out-of-field phenomenon, the school support cultures, teacher characteristics, program effects and successes, and the type of outcomes that arose from the course, and program features as well, and how to best design that. And so that's really an overview of the research approach and focus, just to look at a few sample findings. This is to really, in a sense, preview what you'll hear in a little bit. It was very clear that almost all of these teachers, this is a small sample who answered this question, but they really were encouraged to do it because it was supported financially and also by the school. And very few teachers, we think, based on this, would do this sort of course without that support. It was interesting. This is another example. We've actually got quite a variety of teachers in terms of their context and motivations, but here on the left, you've got quite a similar profile of teachers finding continually better ways to teach, both in their infield and out-of-field subjects, which is encouraging, actually. But the confidence, again, is quite a different story, and it's that confidence that, of course, we've been talking about for 2 days as well. The kind of challenges that we came up against with this very much around, or very obviously around school support. Schools vary quite a bit in the actual support they gave those teachers, despite the fact that there was funding available. Provision of time, at some schools were really quite strategic in negotiating with teachers. Study time, they all, of course, released them for the intensives. This was exacerbated because of the shortage of teachers in Victorian schools because of COVID incursions, of course. Teachers were, in coming to the intensives, were often forced, or very often forced to, or asked to prepare extras to leave behind, and so it was sort of double the workload. And there was mixed experience of support from infield colleagues who we tried to sort of engage in the course for our out-of-field teachers. There was some just moving down to the school teaching and learning culture, some issues there with the fact that we were really basing our approach on evidence-based practice, and that didn't always accord with the traditions within the school. And so there was some interesting, I say interesting with a capital I, tensions there sometimes about their response, and also their response to the amount of content they were getting. Some came in with expecting a maths or a science course, and we were teaching the content through pedagogy. So we had to do some really, if you like, we had to be very explicit about what we were doing as we went. There was a regular, of course, update as we went through with the design-based research in terms of how we modified, how we pivoted, if you like, to needs. For instance, flexibility of assignment dates, focus on practical activities and how you support those with online settings. We designed digital collaborative tools, and we were explicit in our marrying of content with curriculum objectives. So there was a lot of ongoing modification and adaptation. Julie's going to talk about the Circles project. Julie, you okay to do that?
Yes, thank you, Russell. And can you hear me okay? Great. So Circles was actually an acronym given to us by the department in the request for tender, because they anticipated that some teachers, they anticipated that about 20% of the teachers who enrolled in these courses would require some additional support, additional to what they would usually get at the university as some practicing teachers returning to study. So we have a team that is comprised of myself and my colleague Joe Raphael, and 3 casual mentors who provide supports to the teachers enrolled in the courses, who approach us directly, who turn up to offerings that we publicise, or who are referred to us by the course team, the leaders of the courses and leaders of the subjects. We offer one-to-one consultations, small group sessions on skills. Largely that has been academic skills, but not always. We had a session on calculators, for example. And we've also provided digital resources, including referrals and identifying and pointing teachers to materials that are available in their course sites. Now, I won't read through the detail of this slide in terms of the amount of engagement and the types of things that are there. Please have a look through. As we did have teachers who opted in to these additional supports, where they could talk to a mentor about their studies, about their learning, about their situations in the course or in their schools. or they could exchange documents via email, they could have video meetups, or they could turn up to small group sessions. And as Russell mentioned, confidence, I think confidence and also identity and complexity of identity has sort of been threaded through the conference. And that is one of our, I guess, our main insights from the data that Circles collected. And we also ran surveys and also some interviews with teachers who took advantage of the supports that we offered. That many of them, I think, when we think about teachers who are teaching out of field, their teaching identities are already very complex and in different ways from each other, likely as well, in that they may be experienced teachers, but they're teaching without a qualification. They may be happy with that, or they may feel like an imposter, and that word was used by some of the teachers we spoke to. And they might have different reasons for coming forward to get a qualification to become in-field teachers. But on top of that, they're also returning to study and are being positioned as students. And we found that a lot of the teachers that we spoke to and that we provided support to were actually quite overwhelmed and really feeling at sea in terms of their skills and confidence in engaging in academic tasks. So that was one of the main points of our engagement with them, trying to build up their confidence and their skills so that they could engage in the course successfully. I think that was my last slide, so I'll hand it back.
All right, thanks, Julie. And just quickly, in terms of that design-based cycle, in the second year of the project, we made a number of changes. A couple to do with the way that the course was advertised and the sort of conditions under which people came in. So we were much stronger on school commitments, for instance, to the teachers, and on the need for them to be actively teaching in the subject at the time. There was some move to concentrate the intensives at the beginning of terms and a refinement of the circle support. And for next year, again, we have a contract, it'll be extended to 2 years. So, I mean, we focused on some of the challenges that we've had, but just to kind of leave you with some of the positives, we've had a lot of very good response and evidence of changed practice. And so there are some quotes there that illustrate some of those positives. Raphael, I think we're out of time.